Hello, and welcome to Little State Big Voices. As you know, it was Mother's Day weekend and graduation celebrations for us. So we are re airing a fan favorite episode, but we will be back next Monday. I hope that you all had a great weekend, and I hope you join us next week on Little State Big Voices with myself, Shahida, and my fabulous co host, Tracy. Hello, and welcome to Little State Big Voices with myself, Shahida Ali, and my fabulous co host, Tracy.
Hi, everyone.
And today we have another special guest, someone big in the arts, and Tracy is going to do the introductions.
Yes, indeed. So our guest today, Jonathan Pitts-Wiley, is a Rhode Island native and a 2007 Yale University graduate. Known in the city as a gifted portrait photographer, his work captures the strength and relatable vulnerability of humanity. He has worked with notable clients such as the Amos House, Brown University, and the City of Providence, just to name a few. In 2020, he co-founded the Vanta Guild, a Black photographer collective that showcases exhibitions across Rhode Island at venues like Waterfire Arts Center and Trinity Rep. As the artistic director at Mixed Magic Theater since 2010, Jonathan has curated numerous productions and events, including original works like A Kwanzaa Song and The Greatness of Gospel, alongside classics such as Fences and Othello. Additionally, he served as the creative director at Curiosity Store in Jamestown, Rhode Island, overseeing innovative programming like Tony, a tribute to Toni Morrison, and Flight Club. Jonathan is married to Kim Morrison Pitts-Wiley, Mixed Magic music director, and they have 2 children. His impact extends beyond photography and theater, contributing significantly to Rhode Island's rich cultural landscape. So join us in welcoming theater royalty, Mr. Jonathan Pitts-Wiley, in the house today, people.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's very exciting to sit down and talk with both of you.
Well, hello. It is very exciting because I have known of Mixed Magic Theater for a while, and I have not attended.
So you in trouble already?
I'm disgusted
I have an
with
excuse.
myself,
I'm
sir.
new in town.
Yeah, that's her excuse. But yeah, I'm disgusted with myself because I've seen various things, and I was like, oh, I got to go over there.
Sure.
I'm, always, and I did not know that it was Black owned. So could you tell us a little bit about that, because that goes into another part of rich history on your part?
Yeah, sure. So Mixed Magic was founded by my mom and dad, Bernadette and Ricardo Pitts-Wiley, in 2000. And so, we're pretty excited about, we're coming up on our 25th anniversary in 2025, which is wild to think about. But, my parents have, been in the arts in Rhode Island, in the performing arts in Rhode Island, since 1976. So, as I was saying off mic, a lot of institutional knowledge there. And so Mixed Magic is their latest iteration of things, but, they've been, doing various versions of, arts organizations, whether that's the Human Eye Theater, which they actually founded in San Diego, California, or the Providence International Theater Company, which was the company kind of before Mixed Magic. So, when it came to be 2000, and there was, particularly a push for, putting diverse images and stories on the stage. My parents continued to do that, and were able to sort of coalesce around this idea of Mixed Magic Theater. And the first motto was first think diverse. And so in many respects, they were continuing to do the work that they'd always been doing. I think the thing with Mixed Magic is that, it truly is about, a multitude of cultural experiences. And as we were talking about, when we kind of had our chat on Zoom a little bit ago, it's different from being like a Black repertory theater company, which is a particular kind of arts organization that is important, and we love that. very much, and we see that as being important. I think the distinction there is that, Black repertory theater companies predominantly pull from, the Black American theatrical canon, and they deserve that respect and recognition and distinction for doing that. For us, we are a Black-owned theater company that tells diverse stories, but we'll tell them. We can tell any number of types of stories, if you will, because there's always going to be a certain Black American aesthetic to it, simply by virtue of the fact that it's run and owned by Black folks. You know what I mean? So, for us to do something like God of Carnage, or Sweat and the Gilded Six Bits, or if we do something like The Tempest, we pride ourselves on being able to do any type of work that aligns with our mission, aligns with our values, aligns with the stories that we want to tell, because we embrace diversity as, sort of baked into the fabric, to mix a metaphor, of what it is that we do. And so that gives us a certain latitude, I would dare say. And so that's been the energy, and that's been the focus of the last, 24 years.
That's so incredible. And you mentioned California, and I know from our conversation that you're actually native to Rhode Island.
Yes, they allow that.
They allow that.
Yeah. I grew up in North Kingstown, and which is about 25, 30 minutes from Providence, and so that was my upbringing. That was my experiences. It's kind of less rural than it used to be, mm-hmm. I guess. It's becoming more suburban in the way that we think of suburbs. But that was where we grew up, and my parents, they had to make choices about school districts and things of that nature, and so that was the choice that they made. So that was, I consider, simply says, "Where's your hometown?" I'm always like, North Kingstown. That's where I grew up. And it was, an interesting place to grow up. I think that experience, I was one of, few Black kids in a class or things of that nature. And so, there were challenging aspects to that. But it was also, kind of an interesting, I don't know if it's paradoxical, but a lot of people knew who my parents were by virtue of the work that they did in the arts community. And so I don't know that it was about being insulated from certain experiences, but, I got a very rich Black experience just because of who my parents were and what they were committed to exposing my brother and myself. I have an older brother, Ricardo, to what to what we were exposed to. And I also think that, on a certain level, them being in North Kingstown and being active in the way that they were as community members, I think that it helped a lot of people grow and have sort of attitudinal adjustment. So I didn't, whatever discrimination I encountered, or it was of the microaggression variety, mm-hmm. Born of ignorance and things of that nature. But, largely it was a good experience, and, a place where, I was talking to, one of my best friends, also a Black guy, who also grew up in North Kingstown. And I think you almost kind of looking back, some things where it was like, I guess that was a little more messed up than we kind of thought, or like how we navigated our way through that, or what that experience was like. But in real time, I wouldn't classify it as hostile, mm-hmm. And so my experience was, but I can't say that that's the experience of every black person that grew up in North Kingstown or in predominantly white towns or anything of that nature. But again, I give my parents a lot of credit. They just engaged in combat over that sort of thing. If something happens, they're like, all right, we're going to put a program together. There's going to be a direct, like,
I love that.
You know what I mean? Like they were like, just, they were not, they were not and are not for play, but also like it was, they are very much descendants of the black arts movement of the 60s and 70s, right? And so producing art was an act of rebellion onto itself. And telling black stories was an act of rebellion onto itself. So that's just like how they came up. You know what I mean? That's how they oriented and situated themselves in the world. And so they were never going to like apologize about that. But they were and are, they are call out, call in people. We're going to call you out for shenanigans. I don't know if you can curse on the podcast. You know what I mean?
Watch your language, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's what I figured. They'll call you out for the shenanigans, but also, we'll call in, for a conversation about, okay, how do we move forward in a way that is productive and where people grow and learn and have the opportunity to change. I think that there are a lot of people in North Kingstown who are better for having known and been around my family and my parents in particular. Can't speak for myself, but I can certainly say that about my parents.
So I love hearing that, specifically because it's a suburban town or a rural town in the Northeast. And a lot of times parents have their children in those situations, but don't educate them on their blackness. And the way that your family was able to, your parents were able to include the arts and, actual education.
Sure.
I can see that giving you that solid ground. And I'm like so impressed because I feel like, our parents were particularly the same, but we weren't in a rural situation. In the city, it's totally different.
Sure.
So can you give us an example of maybe some type of play or educational project that they put together to educate like some people in North Kingston during that time? Because I just find that fascinating.
Sure. I mean, I think that I can think of a couple of examples, and so in first grade, my first grade teacher, Jeannie Dunn, who was amazing, just an amazing teacher. She recognized what it was. I think because the first day of first grade, I came to the classroom. I'd never been in a classroom with where I was the only black person because my parents, up to that point, I'd gone to Mount Hope Daycare on the east side. And so it was black folks everywhere, you know what I mean? And so I had never been in an academic situation, if you will, or a school situation where I was the only black person. So I cried the first day. And Miss Dunn was very sensitive to that. In the sense of, we throw around the word ally too much for white folks doing the least thing. And then it's but no, she was an ally when that wasn't even a thing. She really was about that action. She really was. And so, she was I want to do, I think this is 1990 or something, right? But it's just I want to do Africa Day for the classroom, something. And she went. She knew who my parents were. Yeah, and so my dad came and did a show in one of his original properties, Azu the Future Seer, right? And he came and did that at school, and then I sort of jumped to middle school, and I forget if it was off of some sort of incident. I truly don't recall, but but my mom, when she was sort of the diversity coordinator at Johnson & Wales, that was her job at the time, we put together what she calls her diversity babies, and we just did this show in middle school of multi-ethnic sort of experience, really that is about embracing diversity, the importance of it, what happens if we don't embrace diversity, that sort of thing. So like it was just like a diversity committee situation there. And then in 2000, which was really in this show was really the sort of seed for mixed magic theater. But it was the whole it's the year 2000, what are we doing in arts and culture, that that moment. And so my dad is sort of and I think they went to the like arts councils in the states, and this is something that was happening nationally or whatever, but like state and city and town arts councils were like, what's our 2000 contribution? And so my dad devised this show called How the World Came to the NK Cafe, which is a sort of an adaptation of the show, of his show, We, They, and the Beatles, which he had done at North Kingstown High School when he was the drama teacher there in the early 90s. And so How the World Came to the NK Cafe was this play about sort of the town of North Kingstown and this fictional NK Cafe where there were the proprietor of the institution or of the cafe had 3 TVs. There was one set to ABC, NBC, and CBS. And really it's about, how that town experienced more or less, that 40-year span from 1960 to 2000. And again, very diverse show. And I performed in the show. A lot of my friends were in the show and stuff like that. It was great. And so those are just kind of 3 examples of that. When I was in high school, I went to Portsmouth Abbey in Portsmouth, and at the time there wasn't really like Black History Month programming, or there might be like an assembly or something. I was like, man, we got to do something more than that. And so when I went to the school, like, hey, like I want to do this program, I want to do this thing, and school was like, sure. And my parents were very integral and supportive, in that process. And so, they have a track record of doing that and of, being arts activists and really, engaging with and devoting themselves to that type of work. And there's just, there, myself included, are just a lot of people that I think, benefited from that, over the years. And I think that it's interesting to see the ways in which, things that they were fighting for or about, say the way those things have evolved and changed for the better, ways that they haven't, and so, as far as they're concerned, the work continues because shenanigans don't stop,
They don't stop. And, I consider that a ministry, like what your parents do, what you do, what your wife does. And it is a legacy. So I don't toy with that word when I throw it out there. You literally are like Rhode Island theater royalty. And I think that people will accept a message better through the arts and entertainment than they will if you're just trying to have a one-on-one conversation with them about anything. You can send a message whether they agree or disagree through a play, through a song, a poem. I feel people receive it better, and it just kind of the message hits a little differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that is the great power of art. The best art, in my opinion, gets to very simple human things. And by simple, I don't mean that they are not complex, you know what I mean? But simple in the sense of being fundamental, what makes us tick and moves us as as humans, you know, and that, you know, we are all coming at our lives and at our humanity from different experiences, different inputs, different stimuli, and things of that nature. But, you know, I think, and again, the great thing about art is that it shows us the ways in which we are the same, and also shows us the ways in which our difference is okay. You know, I embrace plurality. I enjoy difference and variety and texture, things of that nature. But there's also some things that are just very basic human being things. And again, the best art articulates that in ways that are resonant. And I use that word in particular, resonant. It vibrates within us and moves us to either act differently, think differently, to consider, you know, or to, if we allow it to know that, our own experiences are not the only experiences that exist in the world. You know, we're sharing this space individually and collectively, and, you know, just trying to do our best to navigate as best we can.
You can tell you're an artist. So poetic.
Yes.
I love it. But, okay, like Tracy said, you're coming from this great legacy.
Sure.
There has to be a lot of pressure with that. And then also, you know, you want to pay homage to your parents and continue that legacy, but then there must be part of you, too, that has a different voice from theirs. And how, you know, or if you even do, but how do you express yourself differently than what your parents might, or what roads are you trying to take, even though they've paved that way? How would it be a little bit different, if you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, no,
Okay,
I do. No, I do. I mean, and, you know, it's interesting, you know, the pressure is not really so much from my parents, but literally from, like, the magnitude of the work they've done and the people they've helped and things of that nature. So it's much more about honoring that than any sort of thing of, like, my parents expect me to run the theater company or things of that nature. They're not really like that. They're parents who are like, hey man, do what makes you happy, you know. I probably project more pressure onto it than they are actually transmitting themselves. You know, I was saying to somebody the other day, you know, it's much more for me about what will people who know my parents think of me if I'm not moving in the way that they do. You know what I mean? And again, that's not good, but that's probably the most truthful way to say it. I think photography, and not even I know photography is sort of the distinction, if you will, or that's how my storytelling interests have articulated themselves. But, you know, I say to people all the time, or I'll ask anybody or I'll tell anybody who asks that, you know, so much of my photography is informed by having grown up in the theater, having grown up, you know, with a mom who is a poet and just made clear the importance of language and words. And not to say that my father didn't do that as an actor, but something, frankly, that I don't think, you know, enough people kind of know or appreciate is, you know, my mom's own artistry and her love of language and things of that nature. You know, I think that very much was impressed upon me. Like, you know, when she was driving me into kindergarten and stuff, it was like, you know, she's reciting Nikki Giovanni poems to me. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I understood it. You know, my handwriting is like my mother's, who's is like my grandmother's. You know what I mean? We write in cursive in the same way. She taught me the importance of that. You know, I wanted to have neat handwriting like my mom. You know what I mean? And so, you know, words and their importance was just, that's day one, you know. And so I often say to people, and this will sound like the most like artsy answer or thing to say, but it's taken me a long time to consider myself a visual artist, when it comes to photography. And it's not because I'm trying to be interesting or coy or cool or things of that nature, but I still come from the world of like, well, I can't draw, I can't do, you know what I mean, that sort of thing. And just when I think about what informs my work in that way, it starts with the theater in a lot of respects, and it starts with a Black theatrical aesthetic, because if nothing else, my parents were embracing and articulating what Kwame Brathwaite was doing with his work, his photographic work. Black is beautiful. That's the thing. I was always, I was never taught that we were ugly.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
That's a light bulb moment. Mm-hmm. So something you said earlier about starting your education, your traditional education in an all-Black setting and then being transplanted into a predominantly white setting is something I can identify with, because I went to a really Black daycare. I don't think there were any white children in our daycare either. And I had the same experience. I immediately went into what we call in Massachusetts or in Boston, the METCO program, mm-hmm. which is a busing program. And I just was, things you were saying were firing off in my head too. I think that foundation can be so important as you transition your kids because I think things can go differently if you don't have that foundation.
Sure.
First. So now, knowing that you have 2 children of your own, what does that look like as far as your expectations or no expectations at all for what your children are going to do in the arts?
Well, I think our attitude has always been, for Kim and I, our attitude has always been that, the theater is your birthright, and you can use it or not use it. There's not an expectation of like, well, you got to be at Mixed Magic or things of that nature. What we expect is that, you use your talents to do good things. Like, that's the expectation. Be a good person, use whatever talents that you have to help or to inspire or to, again, like I said, come back to the simple, like, do good stuff with the stuff that you got. Our kids are really talented, and we want them to know, it is a bit Spider-Man too, but it's like, no, you use your abilities to do good things, or try to do good things, to try to be helpful, try to make a positive contribution, to what it is that, to this human condition of ours. And so, we see our kids, their artistic interests are, our oldest is really, a really good costume designer and really getting into like makeup and things of that nature. And, and also just has all of our talents. And I mean, ours, the Pitts-Wiley family, has all of our talents, and, is better at them than all of us. People think I say that because it's my kid. I'm like, no, I'm just saying it because they're the best. Like, that's it. So this past summer, I had the occasion or the opportunity to shoot the Amos House block party, which was really wonderful. And I like the folks at Amos House. They're good people, and I like what they do, their work that they're doing. It's important. And so I had my kiddo come along to second shoot, and I was like, all right, look, because I had set up like a little portrait station in the garden at Amos House, and I was like, and for this portrait installation, there was a prompt of like, what is special? I forget what it was. Like, what is special about the South Side, or it was just something of that nature. And so, like Crow, Crow was at the table, and I was like, all right, just help folks kind of get checked in, have them write down their answer to the prompt. If folks, have a handwriting issue or something of that nature, you just write it out for them. And then, make a sort of in-type portrait of them holding their responses. All right, so then I'm making, color photo portraits. And so I get my work back because I was shooting on film, so I get my film back. And Crow was shooting digital, so I get Crow's back. And, I had a moment of panic because I'm like, these folks paying me, and this kid just did better work. And so it was actually great because I was like, all right, so what I'm going to do is, so I had my photos, and I was like, all right, I'll gray out the background. So the people were in color, but the background was grayed out. And that'd be nicer because, you kind of want to clean up the backgrounds and all that good stuff. But, and the folks at Amos House were very, happy with the work, and I'm glad that they were. But I was like, if only you knew that I was like, my kid styled on me crazy. And I was like, this is just not comparable. I gotta earn this check.
That's a proud parent moment, though. When
Sure.
you see your kid do something amazing, and as a parent, I take credit for that stuff. I might not say it out loud, but I'm like, yeah, that's my kid. It's because of me. I try to bring it back to me, but kids, I love to see kids manifest their creativity or whatever their talent is.
Sure.
I love kids with personality, with layers and texture to them. So I know you probably were beaming.
How old is he?
13.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the youngest son, is 7.
Mm-hmm.
He's you'll meet him. He's a charming little guy. He'll be performing in the concert on 27th.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Please tell us more about the concert.
Okay, yeah. So Mixed Magic was founded in 2000, and in 2006, we founded the Mixed Magic Theater Exalt Choir. And the Exalt Choir was founded because we're trying to preserve and celebrate the rich gospel music tradition in the United States. And, a lot of our elders at the time were passing on. Obviously, it's continuing to happen as time moves on. But we wanted to because so much of that tradition, as you understand, even if it's so much of it's oral, so much of it is these sort of these keepers of history. And as they transition, that's how history kind of can get lost or misunderstood and things of that nature. So, we were doing that, and that's in large part because of the work in the music that my grandmother was doing. My grandmother Ann Ray Pitts, who was huge, in the community in Providence. Big into education, big into sort of church activism. She was very active in her church, and was a great gospel music singer. She and Barbara Bryant, who was her best friend. They were luminaries in the genre. And Miss Bryant still goes around and sings, and should be with us on the 27th as well. And so the choir was founded to do that. And then in 2008, because Kim and I met in January 2008, and she became the music director. Well, she became the choir. It's like, oh, you're going to direct the show. Because my dad was the artistic director at the time, and he was just like, you get it. You're going to direct this show. And, Kim was 21.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And he was just like, nope, you got the ball. And she's been the director ever since. The greatness of gospel, which you mentioned at the top of the show, the upcoming one will be the 16th, and Kim has directed all of them except for the very first one, and so that's the choir. And over the years, the choir's repertoire has expanded into not just being traditional gospel, but really music that uplifts and elevates the spirit, and so you can have Clara Ward gospel, and then there's Prince type gospel. You know what I mean? It's about, and we say it obviously in the small G gospel sense of what is that music doing? Is it elevating? Is it celebrating? Is it bringing joy or comfort or peace or relief? That sort of thing. And so on the 27th at PPAC, Providence Performing Arts Center, for those who don't know our acronyms and things, they'll be doing the show Exaltation, an evening of uplift with the Mixed Magic Exalt Choir. A really wonderful collection of songs and some really special guests. And, we're looking forward to it. It's a good-sized venue, and it'll be our first in a venue of that size. But, I'm more than confident that we'll rise to the occasion. I trust our music director. She's really good at what she does. Yeah, and she's really good at what she does. And, I think the thing that makes the choir really special is that they enjoy performing with each other. They're up there having a good time. Mm-hmm. They're up there having a great time. And, and they don't really care if there's one person in the show, if there's 1,000 people in the audience. We, of course, love to have 1,000 people. Make no mistake about that. But I've never been to a show where they were concerned about, the audience is going to dictate what we bring. It's never been that. It's always a very loving environment, and you see that. It's kind of, I often do think of the scripture where it's, they shall know they are Christians, they're loved for their love by one to another. And, I think that what really makes a choir special is that, we do a certain type of music and a certain style, some of which is religious and sacred and others which might be called secular or what have you. But the makeup of the choir, you have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Jews, you have folks of no particular denomination or their own faith practice. And so, it's not about you need to believe this. That ain't none of our business. The other thing is what you believe is none of our business. Our business is just transmitting something that vibrates and resonates in such a way that you walk away better. And you walk away with a bit more joy than maybe you walked into the room with, and that you get to get that sort of thing out. And so, like I said, we're looking forward to that. That's going to be a really nice performance, and I look forward to seeing y'all there. Y'all get to meet Kim, and then you'll come and realize, damn, he's not even that cool.
I was not fooling around. Listen, this is February, so we're in Black History Month. We're in the Love Valentine's Month, so just the fact that the theme of Black History is arts and culture this year, it was only fitting to have you here with us for this episode. And then also your love story. I feel like there's a play there that's waiting to happen. I would like to see that.
Yeah, the timing is everything. I think it's a very interesting. We're actually, Kim and I were talking this morning. It's man, we've been together 16 years. And, we met at Mixed Magic. And I think, really the coolest, the coolest part of being married to Kim is being married to her. But, and just being married to a person that people, I joke with people, I'm like, always be with somebody that other people like a little more than you, because then they just anytime they're there, everybody's just happy to see them. I swear, I go to places without Kim. They're like, "Where Kim?" And I'm like, "Working," or but it also was you've known me longer.
But how about you walked in here and we were like, "Where's Kim?"
You really did. I was like, she can't. You had to go work. No, but yeah, I think one of the really gratifying things about being in partnership with Kim, one is just being in the presence of her talent. Like, again, this is not husband stuff. Like, she's one of them ones, man. Like, she's that good. She's that good. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go ask people. She's that good. And in the spirit and the joy and the love with which she does her work is always an inspiration. But one of the really, like, cool things about it is, like, she and my dad have a cool creative relationship, and my dad has he and his music partner have written over like 300 songs and various sort of original works and musicals and things of that nature. And a lot of the work is because my dad is not he's not a trained musician. He's a wonderful songwriter.
That's so interesting.
He just knows how to do it. It's like the funniest thing, right? But it can be like sort of challenging to do if you're a trained musician, because you're working under certain structures and frameworks, and he's like, this is what just sounds good, we're just going to make it work, and so you need certain types of people who can like understand that and work with that. And so seeing the two of them work together, and in many ways my brother and I are like the keepers of that estate on a technical level, but like she is the keeper of the sound of my dad's music. She gets it, and and she's been entrusted in that way, and that's just a very cool thing to be part of and to bear witness to. I'm doing this a photo project called Duets, and it's really like interesting combinations of people who are in my life or in my work life or in the various sort of circles in my life. And at first I was gonna be like, okay, my mom and dad, Kim and I, right? But then drafting through, I was like, man, it's not cool. It's not that it's not cool. It's just not as interesting as it could be. And a colleague and a friend who I'm working on this project with was like, try to make the groupings more dynamic, because so many of it was like artist couples, and I just came to realize, I was like, gosh, I know so many artist couples, and which is really cool in its own right.
That is.
Like it's I just know so many, but they were just like dominating the the list, and I was like, we gotta shake this up a bit, and so I put Kim and my dad together. Then I partnered with my mom and then various other people and things of that nature, but it was cool to be able to just be like, oh, they have their own professional and creative relationship that don't have nothing to do with me. It's just very cool to just be like, hey, what are you guys up to?
I gotta check this out. So where can we see the work?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's in progress. I haven't
Okay.
finished it yet. Yeah, so it is slated to go up in like mid-May at Curiosity Store. And Curiosity's moving around the corner from where it's currently located. So as that new space opens up, it'll be part of sort of the grand reopening.
We got to get to that before we end, but there's a couple of things. So I loved what you said about the choirs. And I'm of Muslim faith, the love of choir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
love going to churches.
Sure.
My family's Christian, of course, and so it always speaks to me when I walk out, and I feel like they are on a whole different level, because like you said, they don't need a whole big audience. I've been to choirs where there's like 3 or 4 people, and they will bring you to tears.
sure.
So that
The Hawkins singers, that's 4 people.
I know.
It's 4 people.
So I am very excited to see this, but I know that you're a history teacher.
I was once upon a time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and history and art, and to me, kind of like go hand in hand. And I know that you talked about how, your parents were, very active in saying, oh, if there's something, let's do a project about it to kind of reach people.
Sure.
And so something happened in North Providence, and I know you probably know about it, about the young guy who tried to burn down the black church.
Yeah.
So, and today it came out in Providence Journal that they, the police and everything went to his house, and it was like just all kind of hate against black people.
Sure.
They wanted to shoot. How would you kind of create a teaching moment? Because I feel like something like this is not going to get any better because of the society that we're in now. And I feel like, the arts is like so important right now, especially for younger children, like to teach them that all people are equal, and and to not harbor this type of hate towards one another. How can the arts, and specifically your art, what you guys are doing, kind of like, help with stuff like that?
There's always an interesting question. I think my most honest response is to continue to do the work that we are doing, because it always serves as proof of the alternative, proof that, hateful narratives that are being put forth, that they are ultimately specious at best. You know what I mean? And I've come to, believe that, if you're around long enough, and we're in 2024, so there's a certain level of people have to choose. People have to choose to participate. And when I think about that, then I say, well, then my job is not to jump up and down and point and scream necessarily, although sometimes that's the case, of course. But it's much more about, like, are we consistently combating these narratives by how we operate in the world? I often think that the labor, of that change is unfairly foisted upon Black and brown people. At this moment, I think that there's a lot of no, like the things that I have been saying, or my family's been saying, or any sort of arts group of that nature has been saying, we've been saying them. So the message won't change. People do often come to us after incidents or after things, and it's like, hey, what can we do? And it's like, it's not that we certainly don't answer the question, but what people often sidle the arts with, in BIPOC organizations with, is, hey, can you come up with a program that will keep us from having to actually do the work that we need to do in order to address this problem? Some people need to be checking their uncle at the dinner table at Thanksgiving. And it's actually not my job to do that. Like, my program isn't going to do that, And I think that there's a lot of times people will use diversity measures actually to shirk responsibility and not be accountable for the behaviors of members of various communities. You know what I mean? I talk to my buddy all the time, or several buddies, about this. It's like, on a certain level, I have nothing left to say. There's nothing left to say. Like, we're coming up on an election year. There's nothing left to say. Doesn't mean I will stop saying things, but the whole idea of, like, well, let me go through the gymnastics of, like, well, maybe if I say it this way, you'll get it. At some point, for the emotional and spiritual and psychic well-being of Black and brown folks, at some point, it's like, wait a minute, why am I doing the gymnastics? Why am I doing the gymnastics? Like, this is not this is not a new problem. This is that same problem we've been told y'all about.
Right.
And so it keeps happening, and we keep saying the same thing, so that at a certain point the common denominator becomes your lack of
Right.
of action or deciding to make folks feel accountable.
And it's a chicken and an egg scenario, because it's like, okay, if I don't say anything, then how will they know it? But there's some common ground, but we have to respect ourselves enough to not stress ourselves out to be the DE&I, gatekeepers for everything. Like we do have to push back some responsibility. But what I'm thinking, based on what you asked and what you said previously, Jonathan, is that maybe getting to them younger at school, like what your parents are doing.
And I'm more talking about our children, because the way I speak to Darius,
Yes.
who's my grandson, because I know I'm with you. I'm done talking to people up here, because by now what
Sure.
you need to do.
Sure.
And you just kind of like want to piggyback it onto me to carry it for another generation. But then I want him to grow up knowing, just as your parents taught you, you're not ugly. Your self-worth is most important, and somebody else's feelings are not more important than yours.
Sure.
So if you feel a certain way about something that was said to you, you have every right to feel that way, and it shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to shirk yourself back. And I feel like art and theater and that can, encourage him more, or not just
Sure.
him, but just children in general, and having things that happen in the real world, and then having, teachers like you,
Sure.
speak to them on that level so that they could understand. That's the angle I'm going for more than anything.
Yeah, and I think that through that lens and through that level of perspective and understanding, in some ways the answer is similar, but maybe less, because the audience is different. The message lands differently. Something that I say, one of the privileges that I had was I never had a question as to whether like Black people could be artists, or or whether a Black person could be an actor or something of that nature, because I grew up and saw that and knew that to just be part of my reality. Mm-hmm. And something that we're doing at Mixed Magic now, so to answer your question more, something that I'm really interested in pivoting toward is not, getting away from doing shows or things of that nature, but really being especially intentional on a sort of like workforce development level about, creating a pipeline of Black and brown theater practitioners. I think a lot of people think like, man, if I don't want to be an actor, I can't be in the theater. I'm like, listen, man, like, actor is like the 30th job in a production. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways to be involved and to learn a trade and to learn a skill. And so much of what we have battled against and struggled with in even since the founding of Mixed Magic is that we often have to grow our own food. You know what I mean? In the sense of, you got to make people actors. You got to make people these things. You got to make people, technicians or things of that nature. And so the challenge of that is like, it's hard to build a plane and fly it at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we've largely done it to varying degrees of success, and we're still here. So the success speaks for itself on that level. But, really as I step, even further into my role and tenure at the theater, my interest is in deepening the bench. And I've said it publicly, privately, and anywhere in between, as far as I'm concerned, my family's legacy in the arts has been spoken for in Rhode Island. Not to say that that can't be added to, but like, were we to walk away from it today, we did some good things, and so for me, real legacy is like, man, who's running Mixed Magic? If there are no Pitts-Wileys in the mix, that to me is victory. That to me is success. Not because I don't want to have any involvement with the theater, but I know my parents' level of commitment. I know Kim's level of commitment. I know my own. It's not in, I forget who said it earlier, but it's like, it's not really my family's business. This is my family's purpose. This is my family's like earthly mission. You know what I mean? So what it is for me and what it is to us is something that people simply cannot appreciate, And because I recognize that, there's also that element of, what is this thing without us? Because one day that'll happen. Like, it's like one day that'll happen. You know what I mean? And if it all fell apart without us, doesn't mean it wasn't good, but my interest is creating something that does not require us. What do they say? Legacy is about, sowing seeds in a garden that you're not going to see grow. You know what I mean? And that's a real thing for me. Like, the ability to hand it off, and it's not because I'm trying to get rid of it, but I know what it is for my parents and for myself and for Kim. I know what that is. It's so personal to the degree of like, all right, so if we take that element out of it, what is Mixed Magic? What do we have? And I do think there's a great community of people of whom, makes up the Mixed Magic family and things of that nature. But that long-term thing, if it depends on us, there's a part of me that's like, then what was it made of? I know what the Pitts-Wileys are made of, but Mixed Magic is bigger than us, or it has to be. That's my belief. If it's going to have longevity, it has to be bigger than us. If it's dependent on Ricardo and Bernadette and Jonathan and Kim to that degree, then we didn't leave something as long-lasting or as vital as we needed to. And so for me, my responsibility, some of it's just due to age, and some of it's like, my parents are still vital and active and doing all the things, doing too much, frankly, but they have toiled in the vineyards, man.
Yeah.
It's not their time to keep doing that sort of work and the rigor and energy and just dog that it takes. They've done it for like almost 50 years. They deserve a break.
I would
Which
like
is
to see it
incredible
live
in
on
itself.
and through young people. Is there a performing arts high school in Rhode Island?
There are a few. There's the Jackie Walsh, which is in Pawtucket. There's Tapas, which is Trinity Academy for the Performing Arts. That's in downtown Providence. And there might be a few others. I'm sorry if I missed you, but know that you are loved.
I think you might have your pipeline.
Well, it's for us, to be honest with you, it is multi-generational. Because, when you have the arts funding cutting in schools and things that has happened for the better part of 50 years, and let's be honest, it's more like 60 years at this point, then that means that generational harm has been done. And some of the problem is that people think that let's educate this 16-year-old. No, I need to educate the 16-year-old and their parent and their grandparent. Especially theater. Theater is a culture, and therefore it takes acculturation. And so often what happens is that if you are not acculturated into a culture or subculture, there's just pieces that you don't know. There's norms and standards and values and things that you don't know, and then you end up on the outside looking in. So, it's kind of a thing of, on a certain level, I'm like, you know what? 16-year-old, yeah, I kind of need you, but I actually kind of need your mom and your grandma more. I need your dad and your granddad and your uncle more. Or at the very least, I need y'all at the same time. Because multiple generations of harm have been done, even if we're taking 1960 forward. think about what's happened in public education. Think of what's happened in arts education. You know, and then you have the the untethering of the black church as a hub and center in community life. Think about how many people learn to play instruments at church. And this is not me saying that you need to go to church or not go to church. I'm simply speaking to the facts. Black church used to be deeply powerful in black communities, and its power in black communities, particularly in Rhode Island, it has wavered. All right? And that's not a value judgment. That's just a fact. How many people learned how to sing, play an instrument, at church? Okay? So if you take the church out of the equation for whatever reason, that's one down. Oh, they're cutting arts fundings at schools, so you're not going to learn to play an instrument or maybe be in a player. So where are you getting that from? Meanwhile, your counterparts in more affluent areas, their arts fund is not getting cut. And even if it did, it's like, oh, I can go to get private lessons because I can pay for that. Or I'll go to this school which specializes in that. Like, you know, and you don't just learn instruments. You don't just learn theater. You know, that's not how it works. And so the things that we have to address, you know, are, you know, the magnitude, again, is multi-generational. So you have to take a multi-generational approach. I know plenty of people who've walked in the doors at Mixed Magic Theater at 35 years old, having done no sort of theater, having no sort of interest, and have remained in it for, again, even just the 16 years that I've been part of it. So it's a thing I've seen. I've also seen the thing of high schooler on the brink of bad things going on. And now homeboys in La Broa, I'm talking about Rudy Cabrera now, he's in La Broa at Trinity right now. And I can say that, like, we have a large part to play in that. Rudy did the work, but we have a large part to play in that. Rudy will tell you that himself. So I'm not, hey, Rudy, if you hear this, you know I ain't talking out of school here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what it is, you know. So this thing that I want to sort of pivot toward is not something that we haven't been doing, but now really, really, like, seeking to do it on purpose. Because to me, I don't know what's left to prove. I don't say that with arrogance. It's just like, at this point, like, prove what? My family's commitment to the arts in Rhode Island?
Yeah,
proven.
Absolutely have nothing to
like,
prove.
right? So,
It's like,
so proving that you, or we, you know, created some sort of pipeline where you have more black and brown practitioners out there, again, of various stripes, so not just, you know, actors, but light tech, box office management, front of house, marketing, and all the things that you need. I come back to the privilege that I had. I knew it could be done because I saw it. And so just by virtue of that logic, to show it to others will hopefully let at least some know, it's like, oh, this is a thing that I can do and that I can be a part of, and not just in the mixed magic sense, but in the world of the performing arts. We're not, you know, a lot of companies can get territorial about, you know, actors and performers, and it's like, well, you're one of our actors and things like, man, we don't move like that. You know, I take a great deal of pride in seeing the various actors who have come through Mixed Magic and got a good amount of training at Mixed Magic at the various theaters in Rhode Island. Like, why wouldn't I be proud of that? Because, you know, we know what we've done. Because that's the proof. That's the proof. And plenty of artistic directors and casting directors, they call me for what? Not just for my, you know, personality. They're like, hey, do you know somebody? Oftentimes, we do, because we did that work. And I'm never going to step on somebody else's bag like that. You know what I mean? If that's an opportunity for an actor, who would I be to gatekeep that? Like, no, that's a Mixed Magic person. Nah, man. You know, What would make me salty is if it's like, don't act like this is not where you came from. But
Right.
nobody's ever done that. I look in the programs. We always get our propers from these actors. So like, great. I get to be proud.
That's powerful.
It is. And on that note, we are going to. You have to talk about the bookstore in Jamestown.
Sure.
Really quick.
No, sure.
We have a little bit of time left.
Yeah, sure. What about it? I can say many things.
I didn't know about the bookstore.
So it's in Jamestown, which is a little bit away from Providence, about 45
40
minutes or so.
yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about your experience there and some of the things.
Were you the creative director there?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was the creative director, so I left my teaching job. It was 2021, and in the fall of 2021, and came on as creative director at Curiosity Store, which is a bookstore, wine bar, cultural center, and was just asked to like, hey, come up with some programming and come up with helping to create it as a cultural space. And we had some really good success with that, and you learn a lot. Being in the retail sector, as you know, is like it presents its own kind of challenges. And so the thing that we committed ourselves to is controlling the things that we can control in terms of, hey, is this a great experience? When you walk into the store, is it a great experience? And I think that over the last 2 years, and it's certainly not like simply just like because of me, I was a contributor to, an overall great team of people and who are creative and thoughtful. And, always feeling, the thing that I always felt was like supported in trying things, you know what I mean? And I think that was really gratifying over the last couple of years, and not just the things that you learn and the things about how to, be a bit better organized or curating experiences, but also, coming to understand what excellence in that way is. And not that I didn't understand it in the sort of theatrical space, but, building something kind of from the ground up is different. Like mixed magic is in many respects an inheritance, you know what I mean? Like it is, there's decades of work that my parents did that I get to take advantage of, and so to be able to be in a space where you're trying new things, not everything worked, but some of the things did. And, I think 2020 was a really good example of, the possibility that the space had, and over the years of figuring out, like, what works and, what our audience is asking for, and seeing that, and seeing the space really move, particularly toward, author talks and like I said, these wine tastings, Flake Club. There's actually a Flake Club tonight on the day of this recording. And so I'll be heading down to Jamestown later
What's a
today.
Flake Club? What is that?
It's wine. It's a wine tasting.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and so it's like a 4-wine flight, and so it ends up being like the equivalent of 2.5 glasses. And the thing about it was, we really wanted to sort of demystify and take some of the like lofty like arrogance that can come with wine and its like culture, and just trying to treat it as a communal space that's a light lift, and that is not that's accessible, right? And being knowledgeable about the wines and things of that nature, but treating it as a more regular and communal thing as opposed to an elite endeavor or enterprise. You know what I mean? It was always very interesting because a lot of time, when people would walk into Curiosity, it's kind of changing now, but people would often remark that they expected us to be like snotty and arrogant and like standoffish. And so when they come in and we're just like vibing, they're like, are you open? I'm like, yes, we're open.
Because
like
it's Jamestown.
right,
It's such a great, like, I really felt at home when I walked in, and it's a place where you can bring your children because they have children's literature, and then it's a place you can get a really cool, fun graphic novel, or you could get one of the classics. And it was a small space, but it had an upper level, so there was a reading in the upper level. But just the layout, everything about it just had there was an energy in there that made me want to go back.
So there's two things. We have Mixed Magic.
Sure.
And we have you coming up at PPAC.
Yep, on 27th.
Exaltation.
Yep,
and we all have to visit the Curiosity Store.
Curiosity Store, 14 Narragansett
Get
Avenue.
your tickets though for that show because I predict it's going to sell out.
It's we're getting there. We're working on it, and definitely get your tickets. It is, the choir is a great experience. I remember the first time. So this is 2008, and this is the second Greatness of Gospel, and it was in Mixed Magic used to be located in downtown Pawtucket, next to the bus terminus in the old Peerless building. Some folks from Rhode Island were like, "Yep, know what we're talking about." And I remember I was up in the booth. I think I was running lights for the show. And I remember being up in the booth, and I'd been to rehearsals and things of that nature, but like seeing the choir step out and perform, and seeing Kim just like perform, I remember just like being like, I almost started crying. It was wild, man, because I Kim never ceases to amaze me. And so I remember the first time, and it's not the first time she had amazed me because she had been in the show that I directed and all this, but to see someone command the stage and again, 21 at the time, you know what I mean? And just seeing that level of talent and passion, and to see her perform is a different sort of experience, and to see how the choir then responds and performs. She shows up for them, they show up for her and for each other, and that truly is the best part of seeing the choir. You're always going to get a show, and you're going to see that the love that they have for each other, the love that they have for this music. So yeah, now you got to get those tickets.
It will be an experience.
Yes,
absolutely.
And we will have links to where you can get your tickets. We'll have more information about Jonathan, and where can they follow you on social media?
So you can follow me on Instagram, J like the letter J Pitts-Wiley or that's my @ on IG. I'm also on Threads if people are on that, which is IG adjacent. And then my website, which is jpittswiley, no hyphen, .com, jpittswiley.com. So
thank you so
it's Rhode
much.
Island. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah.
We will find you. Listen, if you can't find Jonathan, come to Little State Big Voices on Instagram, TikTok. We're on YouTube now. Come find us, and we will connect you with those tickets.
Great.
Okay. Thank you for coming and sharing this.
Oh,
with
thank
us.
you
We
for
appreciate
having me here. I appreciate it.
All right. So till next time, guys.
Until then.